Hi there, smart driver. Talking to you today about situational awareness, probably the most critical skill for defensive driving and keeping yourself safe and preventing a crash when you're operating a motor vehicle. This is what we're talking about today. We're going to give you tips, strategies, and techniques that you can put in place to keep yourself safe when you're driving. A few people are here already. Marion is here from sunny Vancouver. Sean is here from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. I am here too. Awesome. Excellent. So if you're tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know what class of license you're going for, how we can help you out. We help you to pass the driver's test, become a safer, smarter driver, or start a career as a truck or bus driver. We're talking about situational awareness, knowing what is around you, knowing the 6 factors of driving. What are the 6 factors of driving? The driver, the vehicle, the road, traffic, light, and weather. Those are the 6 components that you're dealing with when driving, and these 6 factors are always changing. And because they're always changing, this is the reason that AI cars cannot drive by themselves as of yet. And they say this, and it's on social media, that these cars have driven hundreds of thousands of miles, millions of miles without incident, without accident. But the thing is that there are crews always monitoring these vehicles for when they get into trouble. The self-driving feature of the Teslas stuff is coming to light, where they get stuck in traffic, they can't deal with the situation, those types of things. And this is why we're not moving forward with self-driving cars. Unfortunately, as well, we've had a few fatalities with self-driving cars, which has eroded the trust in these vehicles, because me personally, I am not comfortable in a vehicle that's driving itself. That is just completely foreign to me. We are in that transition period where these vehicles can't do this. We need, as drivers, the situational awareness. This is the component that we need to have in place to keep ourselves safe. This is the component that they can't completely figure out in terms of self-driving cars, and this is why humans are better at it than self-driving cars. Now, not to say that humans don't have crashes, because they do, and they make mistakes all the time, but to be a safer, smarter driver, you need to have situational awareness of what's going on around your vehicle, and you need to be aware of those 6 different factors when you're driving. The vehicle, other vehicles on the roadway, the vehicles that comprise and make up the traffic in the vicinity where you're driving, the drivers of those vehicles, that can be any different kind of driver, right, with wide varying degrees of skill. They can be operating any kind of vehicle, so that those combination are always going to change and make traffic different when you're driving. Your biggest skill when you're driving is your following distance and stopping back in traffic 1 vehicle length. If you can do that, you have time to work, and you have time to monitor and map and track other road users to have situational awareness. And we know that the number 1 crash on our roadways is rear end crashes. So you have to be aware of what's to the rear of you and maintain that space behind you. And I can tell you this, the other day I was driving down to Kelowna, and I look in the mirror behind me, and there's 2 guys in a truck, and they're like right on my bumper. And I'll tell you, I was banging on the brake pedal to flash the brake lights, because I am not comfortable with people sitting on my bumper. And you know, now that we've started talking about this in the last year or so, I've been paying a lot of attention to how close people are driving behind me. And I have noticed that a lot of people tailgating. Now, I don't know whether this is something that has been changing in the last little while, or it's just that I'm more aware of it, but there are a lot of people who are tailgating me, and I'm on the brakes, you know, flashing the brake lights saying, hey, you are too close, get off my bumper, because they do not like people, you know, trying to park their vehicle in my trunk. Elevator fan is here as well. Blind spot detectors, yes. Any kind of observation technology on your vehicle, don't rely on it. Blind spot detectors, backup cameras, proximity sensors. What else is there? There's other things as well. Convex mirrors is the other one that I was thinking of. These technologies are just a backup to good driving skills. Shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. Marion says it's been changing lately. It bugs me greatly, and yes, and yeah, it seems to be that everybody is tailgating you, and I don't know what this is, that people are in a rush or they just don't want to keep space in front of their vehicle. But again, it comes back to you as a driver and having situational awareness and tapping on that brake pedal to flash the brake lights behind you and say, hey, you are too close. I am not comfortable with you being back there, because you're going to be rear-ended, and you do not want to be rear-ended, because there are no safety features in the vehicle that protect you beyond the head restraint. And the only thing that the head restraint does is prevent your head from snapping back and breaking your neck, but you're still going to sustain soft tissue damage in your shoulders and your neck if you're involved in a rear end crash. And the other problem with it is that you slide down under the seatbelt. The seatbelt does not protect you in the event of a rear end crash. Know that, and have situational awareness and indicate to other people behind you. And if they're not going to back off when you're flashing the brake lights, find a safe place to pull over, get over into the other lane. Right? And the other piece, when we get into congestion, especially with Marion and those types of things, you're in large cities, in Vancouver, Kelowna, where I was driving, sometimes you just can't get into the other lane. You're maintaining your space in front, and you're just in a cluster of vehicles. And even if the person gets past you, they're only going to go up and sit behind the car in front of you that you're maintaining your following distance from, because the cars are all grouped up. And for whatever reason in North America here, people just refuse to get out of that passing lane. Almost always pickup trucks, Marion. Yes, it's almost always pickup trucks for sure. And, other types of vehicles. Subaru drivers get a lot of grief as well when we're driving and whatnot. And, there are different people that will give you different groups of people that are definitely responsible for tailgating and whatnot. But yes, pickup trucks are definitely documented as being more aggressive on our roadways, and people that drive pickup trucks, and they're not even really pickup trucks anymore. They're just big SUVs with a box on the back that isn't good for anything because it's so small. The boxes on these pickup trucks now are only 5.5 feet long. So, they make room for the crew cab where you can sit 6 people in a pickup truck. So it's kind of a van with a little box on the back of it. I digress. But situational awareness, this is what we're talking about, keeping yourself safe, taking note of those 6 factors, and especially now that we're coming into fall and winter time, we're going to get shorter days. You're going to be more likely to be driving at night. You're going to have to be picking the landmarks along the roadway, paying attention to traffic, following other traffic, because for the most part, other traffic is going to be staying on the roadway. People driving at night have difficulty determining where the road is and where it's going. So you need to be looking far down the road, determining where the road is going, especially for those of us who live here in the mountains. The roadways are curvy and turny and up the hill and down the hill and over the hill and around the blueberry bush and those types of things. So you need to be paying attention and mapping and tracking what's going on in the driving environment. The other piece with wintertime coming in fall, we haven't got into frost yet. It hasn't got that cold yet, but we will get into frost and ice and the proverbial black ice pretty soon on the roadways. Bridges and overpasses freeze first. Anywhere that high elevations, low elevations, anywhere that the roadway runs near a body of water. And anytime that you have precipitation in the air, you have fog overnight, or it's snowed and you have snow on the roadways and it's been melting, and then during the day and then overnight it gets cold and it freezes, that's when you're going to get ice on the roadways. Paul, my friend, drivers need to be disciplined by waiting at the light until myself finished crossing. I was wearing a headband flashlight to get drivers' attention. Yes, and at night, as a pedestrian, and I know this because I walk a lot, and at night drivers do not stop, not because they're arrogant. For the most part, drivers don't stop because they don't see you. What Paul is saying, yes, wear a headlamp, and then that way other drivers will see you. But there was something on social media today, I didn't read it, I should have stopped and read it. It said that regardless of what pedestrians are wearing, whether they're wearing reflective clothing or not, drivers don't see them, drivers don't pay attention to them, and drivers do not take evasive action. So take note of that when you're walking at night and keep yourself safe. And again, situational awareness. And the other thing about walking at night, do not wear headphones, because sound is so important, and you can hear vehicles coming. You know where they are on the roadway by the sound when you're walking. Gigi, I want to ask something. I live in Port Coquitlam. What's the best advice for new drivers who are taking their test? Gigi, shoulder check, shoulder check, shoulder check. Lots of shoulder checking when you're driving. And Corey's here. Corey will put up the video for you on a driver's test, the mock driver's test, and that will definitely help you out to pass there in Port Coquitlam. But for the most part, shoulder checking, there's two ways you can potentially fail a driver's test. Automatic fails, not stopping for emergency vehicles, not being able to clear an intersection. You're stuck in the intersection when the light turns red, for example. Those types of things, striking a fixed object. But, you know, take your driver's tests, practice. If you are not taking driving lessons with an instructor, I do encourage you to take one lesson with a driving instructor. They will be able to give you all the tips and strategies you need. They'll give you feedback on your preparation, your preparedness for the driver's test. They will take you to the places where the examiners take you to do the slow speed maneuvers, and they will tell you which skills you need to improve before you go for your driver's test. All right. So Marion is also there in Port Coquitlam. She took the test, so she can definitely give you some tips and pointers. Most drivers don't notice pedestrians at night. Yes, you're absolutely right. And it's not because they're being arrogant. It's just because they don't see the pedestrians. So make sure that if you're crossing at a crosswalk at night, that you slow down, or you as the pedestrian, make sure that you stop. Make sure that the traffic sees you, because there are, here where I live in Vernon, there are a few crosswalks here at night. And there's been a number of times that I have not seen pedestrians at the crosswalk. And it's not that I haven't stopped because I didn't stop and it was arrogance. I didn't stop because I didn't see the pedestrian at all. So know that you have to, you know, the onus of responsibility of keeping yourself safe at night with pedestrians is on the pedestrian. It's really up to you, because if you get into a crash, there's no fender benders. As a pedestrian, as a cyclist, as somebody wearing driving on an e-scooter and those types of things, there's no fender benders for motorcycle riders, right? If you get into a crash, you are going to get hurt and potentially killed in that crash. So keep yourself safe by implementing situational awareness and knowing what's going on in the driving environment. Elevator fans, say hi to your parents for me as well. Thank you for that. Marion, especially if the pedestrian wears dark clothing, yes. And, you know, I'm guilty of that as well when I go out at night. I'm wearing dark clothing because, as the study said, and I need to look at it closer in more detail, is that it doesn't matter what pedestrians are wearing. If you're wearing reflective clothing and those types of things, maybe they will see you, maybe not. Kane from Bangkok, Thailand, how are you, my friend? Welcome to Smart Drive Test. Always a pleasure. Gigi says, I wear reflective vests, but I also notice that some drivers don't have their lights on. Yes, and other drivers will do that as well, because here in Canada, it is mandated that we have daylight running lights on vehicles, and sometimes drivers just simply forget, or they have automatic lights on their vehicle, which most vehicles do in the last 10-12 years, and they forget to turn them to the on position, and it's not dark enough out yet to activate the sensors in the car, and the lights do not turn on. Now, the other driving tip for you is that if you are driving in rain, snow, anytime that it's overcast, turn your lights to the on position if you have them on an automatic setting. Because when it's overcast, you will not have your taillights activated, and people and vehicles behind you will not be able to see you. Not vehicles behind you, but obviously drivers and motorists behind you will not be able to see you. So turn your lights to the on position to activate your taillights in low overcast conditions so the traffic behind you can see you. Evan, my friend, only change lanes when you can see the whole vehicle in the side rear view mirrors. If you're tailgated, you shouldn't change lanes because you'll need to slow down to let others pass. Yes, sometimes you will need to slow down, but other times you will need to speed up to change lanes. And this is one of the mistakes that new drivers make, is that oftentimes when they're changing lanes from one lane to the other, they slow down. Because you're moving on a diagonal, you're covering more space. So to stay the same speed as you were, you need to actually increase your speed slightly as you're moving from one lane to the other to keep yourself safe. So this is one of the mistakes that new drivers make when they're learning how to drive and learning how to change lanes, is that they most times will slow down when in fact you actually need to do the opposite. You actually need to speed up to change lanes and move from one lane to the other safely and keeping yourself safe when you're driving. So we're talking about situational awareness, having awareness of the traffic around you, what's going on, looking in your rearview mirror, and of course all this goes and ties into your scanning pattern. Far down the road, center mirror, far down the road, instrument panel, far down the road, side mirror, far down the road, your other side mirror. And because you're doing that, rotating that every 10 to 20 seconds, and you're scanning and looking and tracking and mapping and tracking road users when you're driving, you have situational awareness and you know where other people are, because driving and being in traffic is like three-dimensional Tetris. You have to keep your space around your vehicle, and you're doing that by staying relative to where other vehicles are in space and place on the roadway. Gigi, I was in Armstrong and Vernon 2 years ago, but the driving there and here in Port Coquitlam and Vancouver is totally two different scenes. Yes, you're in a big city and it's going to change. However, keeping that space in front of you is going to be your biggest defensive posturing, your biggest defensive technique, the most important defensive driving technique that you can keep in place to keep yourself safe when you're driving. Because if you have space around your vehicle, you have time to work, you have time to observe, map, and track other road users. And it's easy to get caught up in this aggression that everybody is displaying when they're driving on the roadways, because everybody's in a hurry, everybody's got to get there yesterday. And part of social driving is mimicking what other people are doing on the roadway. You have to resist what other people are doing on the roadway to keep yourself safe when you're driving. And yes, it's a little bit different when you're in congestion and driving. It's the same thing in Europe. When you're driving in Barcelona, Madrid, Paris, any of these big cities in Europe, sometimes you have to push your way through, but you got to hold the line and you got to go slowly. And if other people are cutting off and taking space and those types of things, just let them go and have their crash somewhere else, right? Don't be aggressive to the point where you're dangerous when you're driving. Sometimes you do have to be aggressive when you're in congestion and heavy traffic and those types of things, or you're not going to get where you're going anytime soon. But you do need to hold the line, and you do need to, there is a way to do it to keep yourself safe when you're driving. Gigi, what's your advice for new drivers who are driving in snow for the first time? Would you recommend that they drive with an experienced driver? Gigi, for the first little bit, keep yourself safe, yes. But when you're driving in snow, the most important thing that you can do is maintain your space. Increase your following distance to 4 seconds. Brake early, okay? And brake early enough that you're going to stop back from where you actually want to stop. So approximately half a block where you actually want to stop, and then creep up to where you want to get stopped. Right? Because if you get up to where you actually want to stop and you start braking, you're like, oh my God, it's slippery, it's icy, as it's going to be at intersections. You want to slow down and stop back from where you actually want to get stopped, and then you want to creep up to where you want to get stopped. So let's get over to the presentation here. We'll get through that. It's 10 or 12 minutes, and then we'll come back. We'll spend the remainder of the hour answering your questions, helping you to become a safer, smarter driver and put in place situational awareness to keep yourself safe when you're driving. We're talking about situational awareness, and it's not just driving. It's everything that you do in your life. You're walking on a busy road, on a sidewalk, and there's lots of pedestrians and those types of things. You're downtown Vancouver, or you're in Seattle or Houston, Texas. You need to have situational awareness of who's around you and those types of things to get to where you're going. It's the same thing with driving. And situational awareness is going to be different depending on what kind of road you're on. So if you're in a congested, busy city highway, your situational awareness is going to be different than if you are on a rural 2-lane highway. Know that when you're driving, that these things are going to be different. And you're going to have to put in place different kinds of space management. But again, 3 to 4 second following distance, stopping back in traffic, 1 vehicle length, mapping and tracking other road users, and looking and determining speed of other vehicles so that you can maintain that space in front of your vehicle. For those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s. I hauled freight between Ontario, Canada, and the United States. While I was going to university in Australia, I drove buses for Greyhound, one of the regional bus lines there as well. In 1997, I became a commercial licensed driving instructor. So I've been a licensed driving instructor for the better part of more than 2 decades now. 2006, I graduated my doctorate in legal history, which is to study policing, courts, and prisons. 2015, I started the online YouTube channel. It's been wildly more successful than I could have ever imagined. However, it seems to have been taking a hit of late, which I can trying to figure out how to kickstart it and get it going again. If you want to know more about me, want to know more about Smart Drive Test, you can head over to the Smart Drive Test website. There's an autobiography over there, and you can check all that out. Resources to have a look at: shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. Corey will put up this video on mastering shoulder checks. And Gigi, this is definitely a video you want to have a look at for getting your driver's license. 5 tips for driving in cities and driving in congestion. And most of these tips are from the city of New York and the city of Montreal, where I was driving there and did some of these tips to keep yourself safe and have situational awareness in the city. And of course, over the years, people have come back to me and said, oh, you can't do that. That's not possible. I had somebody over the weekend come back to me and say, 4-second following distance on a freeway is not feasible, I think was the wording that they used. And were telling me about their adaptive cruise control that it only sets at 2 seconds. Adaptive cruise control on most vehicles can be set at 2 seconds, 4 seconds, or 6 seconds on most models. I'm not aware of any other differences in the vehicles that I've driven over the years with adaptive cruise control, that it's 2 seconds, 4 seconds, or 6 seconds. If you can set it at 4 seconds, that is going to be absolutely ideal for you when you're driving on highways and freeways. And I disagree strongly with that, 4 seconds is not feasible. I can put up all kinds of dash cam footage of when I'm driving. Yes, I don't drive the posted speed limit for the most part. However, I am almost always with the 4-second following distance in front of my vehicle when I'm driving. Swimming and barbecues. When we have situational awareness, we have an idea of the risk involved when we're driving. Somebody is tailgating us. We have a risk, a danger meter of how high that's going to go and what potentially could happen to us when we're involved in a crash. Most of the time, we don't think that we're going to be in trouble, and it's the same thing with barbecuing. We don't think, oh, we're out barbecuing, having fun with the family, making dinner, and those types of things, that potentially the barbecue could catch on fire and catch your entire house on fire. We don't think about those kinds of things, and it's the same thing with swimming. Of course, in this day and age, with lifeguards at public pools and those types of things, and nobody can let their kids go swimming and whatnot, within arm's reach and whatnot, you need to understand what is the inherent risk with driving. And this is why that you need to have situational awareness to keep yourself safe and not being involved in a crash. The other piece about situational awareness is that most people think that they are safe because the average driver only crashes once every 15 to 17 years. And they've gone through the same intersection 1,000 times and nothing has ever happened to them. The one time that they go through the intersection, something changes in the environment slightly and they're involved in a crash because they weren't that one time paying attention, or they didn't develop the habits that would have prevented that crash in that scenario. For example, I drive out of my back driveway here every day, and 2 times out of 100 there's somebody in the alleyway behind me. But 98 times out of 100 there's nobody in the alleyway when I back out into the alleyway to leave my house. It's that 2 times, that small percentage of the time, that we need to put in place situational awareness and defensive driving habits that are going to keep us safe when we're driving. Okay, priorities when driving. When do we need to pay attention? Because there are times that you need to pay attention more so than other times that you're driving. For example, you're on a low density traffic highway and there's not a lot going on. You're on cruise control, you're listening to the radio, you're having a conversation with your friend, those types of things. You don't really have to pay attention other than what's going on behind you, with the traffic behind you and the traffic in front of you, and adjust accordingly. Now, if you're in a city with congestion and you're going through intersections, you need to be on high alert, due to the fact that 40% of crashes happen at intersections. In addition to that, intersections in busy cities are the places where you're most likely to encounter vulnerable road users, and we're going to see more and more vulnerable road users as we get more and more electric vehicles on our roadways, more electric scooters, more electric skateboards, more electric bicycles. This is just going to increase in numbers as these machines become more and more affordable and people are turning to them as alternative forms of transportation. All right, so there are times that you need to be on high alert, but most of the time you can just simply be on yellow alert, low yellow alert, if there's such a thing, but low yellow alert where you're paying attention to what's going on in the driving environment and you're implementing those skills. You're shoulder checking every time you're changing directions of the vehicle. Every time you're turning, you're shoulder checking. You're scanning, ABS, always be scanning, and you're maintaining that space in front of your vehicle so that you can have that situational awareness around yourself and monitoring what's going on in traffic and how traffic is changing when you're driving. Smarter defensive driving. Social driving is the way that everybody drives after they get their license. There is no recommendation for anybody to take defensive driving. There is no recommendation for anybody who has a driver's license driving a car for them to do professional development. And it's the same thing with CDL licenses. In the province of British Columbia, I am not required to do any professional development for my truck driver's license or my bus license, which I think is absolutely ludicrous. At least in the province of Ontario, every 5 years you had to go in and rewrite the theory test. But as far as defensive driving, maybe on the part of the industry and the company that you're working for, but truck drivers, bus drivers have no requirement to do professional development. And as soon as, only when that starts to come into play will they truly be professional drivers. So social driving is the way that everybody else drives after they get their driver's license. They're speeding, they're not coming to a complete stop at stop sign intersections, they're talking on their cell phones, they're distracted. Infotainment centers in cars now are distracting everybody. So everybody is distracted and not paying attention to what's going on in the driving environment. The tools in your defensive driving toolkit are space management, your 3 to 4 second following distance, stopping back in traffic 1 vehicle length, observation, ABS, always be scanning. Excuse me. Speed management, controlling speed to have space around your vehicle, and then finally communication, the ways that you communicate with other traffic on the roadway, the position of your vehicle, speed, lights and signals, horn and eye contact, and hand gestures. You can use hand gestures if you're not sure what the other person on the roadway is doing, a cyclist or a kid on an e-scooter or those types of things. All right, mapping and tracking road users. As I said, 40% of crashes happen at intersections. This is the place that you need to most pay attention to what's going on in the driving environment. Okay, so you're mapping other road users. For example, you're coming up to an intersection, you're going to make a right-hand turn at the intersection. You pass a cyclist a block back, and you get to that intersection and you're continuing to pay attention to where that cyclist is, because if you're at the intersection stopped in preparation for making your right-hand turn for any length of time, that cyclist eventually is going to come up and they're going to pass you, or you're going to have to wait for them to pass you so that you can make your right turn safely. Are you alert to the changes in the driving environment? Because as we know, traffic is dynamic and it is always changing, and it is never ever the same at intersections. Yes, there are some patterns to traffic, but the vehicles, the combination of vehicles and the combination of drivers in any kind of snapshot of time on a roadway in an intersection is always different. And this is what AI and self-driving cars struggle with, is this change in traffic and the 6 factors that make up traffic: the light, the weather, the driver, the vehicles, the road, and I missed one. Anyway, the 6 factors of driving. Where am I? Sitting in traffic? Are you driving along a highway and passing other vehicles? Are you still learning to determine gap and you're turning left at a complex intersection? So oncoming traffic crossing the lane of traffic. And this is something that truck drivers particularly struggle with when they're making right-hand turns and they're swinging wide to compensate for the off-tracking of the trailer. And we've had a lot of stuff going on social media now because of the wide use of dash cams. And yes, A lot of drivers are putting dash cams in their vehicles to determine fault because they believe that they are good drivers and it's the other driver that has to change. It's not me. But dash cams, keep this in mind if you decide that you are going to in fact get a dash cam. Dash cams are watching you too. They're not just watching other drivers on the roadway and other road users. Okay, different driving environments are going to require different levels of situational awareness and what is going on in your driving environment. And it was going back to what Gigi was saying there previously, that driving in Armstrong or Vernon, these little sort of interior towns of 1,500, 2,000 people that live here. Okay, probably 50,000 people live in Vernon. However, it is very different than driving in Vancouver, British Columbia, or driving in Toronto, Ontario, or Dallas, Texas. That requires a much higher and acute level of situational awareness when you're driving and mapping and tracking other road users. Driving environments, residential, industrial, parks and school areas, multi-lane cities, schools, two-lane cities, freeways and interstates, rural country roads, towns and villages. All of these different kinds of driving environments are going to require different situational awareness. If you're on a rural country road in southwestern Ontario where my mom lives, you have horse and buggies, Mennonites, and as well you're going to have tractors. And I just put up a short there the other day about side-by-sides and ATVs. In many of these rural towns now, people are driving around in side-by-sides and ATVs as opposed to driving around in their personal vehicles. Experiential, where to focus, driving habits that will protect you, shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. Always be scanning when you're driving. Maintain your 3 to 4 second following distance, stopping back in traffic 1 vehicle length. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are going to say, if I maintain the 3 to 4 second following distance, then somebody's going to cut in. Yes, every now and again, somebody's going to cut in. But for the most part, people are not going to cut in, and you're going to have that space in front that you're going to be able to work. You're going to be able to map and track other road users. You're going to be able to read traffic patterns and interpret the actions of the individual road users when you're driving. Because other drivers are distracted, they're drowsy, they're drinking late at night. If you're out at midnight, between midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning, there are people on the roadway who are going to be high. They're going to be inebriated in some way. And as well, it's not just alcohol and marijuana and other illegal drugs. Over-the-counter prescription medications, over-the-counter medications and prescription medications are the most abused drugs for motorists. Many people are abusing these drugs and they're operating motor vehicles. Develop the driving habits. Put these habits in place that will keep you safe, because they will not keep you safe today, tomorrow, 6 months from now, 6 years from now. But maybe in 8 years from now, these driving habits will prevent you from being involved in a crash. And the right information, and we talked about this, I had a poll up some years ago about, what is the biggest reason that people get into crashes? And most people said that it's new drivers. They lack the experience of being able to determine when they're in danger when they're driving. And it's this driving intuition that we've talked about in the last few live streams, that you need a certain amount of experience. And Marion was saying this, she's been driving for 2 or 3 years now, that she's beginning to understand and be able to know when other people are going to do something goofy. For example, they don't signal, but they're going to turn right at the next intersection. It's because there's a change in speed of the vehicle. There's a change in position of the vehicle. If you're watching and paying attention to what's going on, the vehicle starts to drift to the right and slow down at the same time. And you're like, oh, okay, that person hasn't signaled, but they're going to turn right at the next intersection. People going to change lanes in front of you. They don't signal, but they move to the left and they're looking and they're kind of slowing down. There's a slight change in speed. And the next thing you know, they're changing lanes and they didn't signal. This is going to happen as you get more experience, that you're going to be able to tell what's going on in the driving environment, because you've developed this intuition where you're paying attention and understanding the nuances in changes in the traffic that's around you. And it's part of your situational awareness that you're going to learn as you get more driving experience. So good luck on your driver's test. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Corey's put up some of those videos. Thank you for that, Corey. You put up the 5 city defensive driving hacks you need to know. Gigi, thanks for all the driving tips and course. I'll keep that in mind, and thank you again. What part of Poco, so Port Coquitlam? I was around the south with a friend last winter practicing snow driving. Awesome. Elevator fan, can lighting up your brake lights at a tailgater cause road rage? Elevator fan, sometimes it can, but you know, you're not going to like hammer on the brakes so you're locking up and brake checking the person behind you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just light tap on the brake pedal that's going to flash the brake lights behind you. Now, yes, sometimes it will encourage road rage, but most of the time what they're going to do is they're just going to go drive off. They're probably going to give you the finger and tell you you're number one. But all that is much better than the person just parking in your trunk and rear-ending you, because you don't want to be rear-ended. Believe me, you. Arch, my friend, I got that. I had a quick look at it this afternoon, but I want to definitely look at it some more. The other thing I need to do, Arch, is I need to pull it down from Dropbox, because the viewer in Dropbox does not show it at the highest quality that it can be. I don't know why that is. I think it's probably just part of their streaming apparatus, that it's not the same quality that it is when I download it. So I'm gonna download it and have a look at it. But I do really appreciate you sending me that. That's really great. I prefer the transit when my friends gets back. I can go for lessons again. Awesome. That is great, GG. Elevator fan says the faster you go, the more focused and alert you need to be. Yes, indeed. On highways and those types of things. Again, it depends, elevator fan, on situational awareness, what the traffic is doing, and where you are. There were lots of times when I was on the interstate 2 summers ago, when I was driving from Washington State across to Michigan. Trust me, I was paying attention. I had situational awareness, but I wasn't like on the edge of my seat. And this is the other aspect of driving and keeping situational awareness around your vehicle. When I'm walking around or I'm driving, I'm always looking at other drivers. And you see drivers in the vehicle and they are not comfortable. They got like 2 hands on the steering wheel and they're like super focused and they're looking out the windshield, and everything in their body is just tense and tight. If you're on the highway and you're on cruise control and you're bombing down the interstate, you should be relaxed and comfortable. And you need to get the vehicle set up so that you are relaxed and comfortable, because if you can be relaxed and comfortable when you're driving, you're going to have more situational awareness around your vehicle. You're going to have the time to do your scanning pattern, check your mirror, look in the back, nobody's there, okay, nobody on my sides, nobody passing me, those types of things. The more relaxed you are when you're driving, the more you're going to be able to implement and maintain those driving habits that are going to keep you safe when you're moving your vehicle along the roadway. Not just you, but other people on the roadway as well, and stay out of trouble and reduce the chances of being involved in a crash. Excuse me. Gigi, yes, transit, okay. Take your time and remember to breathe. You'll be fine. Yes, breathing is the most important part of your driver's test. Remember to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. If you can do that breathing, especially for your driver's test, especially when you get into tense situations when you're driving, that is going to cause your body to relax, and you're going to do better. You're going to perform better, because oftentimes is what happens is when we get into a stressful situation, we get anxious and we're forgetting to breathe, and then we get more tense and then we get more anxious, and we're forgetting things that we need to be doing to keep ourselves safe when we're driving, and we're not paying attention anymore, and our level of situational awareness begins to erode. So you need to relax when you're sitting in the vehicle. Again, if it's cold outside, and you're going for a driver's test and those types of things, take your jacket off, put it in the back seat, turn the heater on, get the controls going so that you're comfortable when you're driving. You do not want to be uncomfortable when you're driving. I mean, if you're going on short drives and those types of things, yeah, okay, keep your jacket on. But if you are going for, more than 10 or 15 minutes, and take your jacket off, throw it in the back of the car, adjust the heater controls accordingly. And when you're going for a driver's test, make sure you know how to turn on the defrost, make sure you know how to turn on the windshield wipers and the windshield washer fluid, and turn on the headlights, because you're going to have to be able to know how to do all of this for a pre-trip inspection that is going to be done before you go out on the roadway, because all driving examiners will do a mini pre-trip inspection before you go out on the roadways, and they need to know that you know where these secondary controls are. So minimum secondary controls that you need to know for the purposes of a driver's test: how to turn on the windshield wipers, the windshield washer fluid, the defrost, and the headlights, high beams, low beams. If you can't do those things, it tells the driving examiner that you do not have a lot of driving experience, because you don't know how to turn on those controls, and you must be able to turn on those controls, especially now that we're getting into fall and heading into winter time. You're going to have to be able to turn on the defrost, because you have to keep the glass clear while you're driving for optimum visibility, because if you can't see, it's very difficult to read traffic patterns and respond to changing traffic patterns that are going to occur when you're driving, because your job during a driver's test is to demonstrate to the examiner that you have due care and control of the vehicle in changing traffic conditions. Gigi, if you're going for your license, can you drive the car by yourself to the DMV by yourself? No, Gigi, you cannot drive it by yourself to the DMV. Somebody has to accompany you there, because you're still on a learner's license. You don't have a full license yet, so somebody does have to go to you. Okay, excellent. So Marion's going to help you out there. That's awesome. Thank you for that, Marion. So we're talking about situational awareness. The reason that this has come up, there's been a number of truck crashes in the last while that I've seen on LinkedIn and Twitter and other social media platforms, and it's always interesting. The last one, I did a short on this, and Corey will find this. It's a rural grain truck turning off a 2-lane rural road, and swings out into the left lane to make the right turn, and the car goes zinging past him, creeps up on the inside, and truck drivers are all saying, oh, the truck driver's not at fault, that's the driver's fault, and right of way rules and law dictate that the vehicle behind has to give way to the vehicle in the front. And that is not the case at all, and I want to say that that is completely and utterly false. And in a courtroom, the truck driver is going to be found at fault every time. If a truck driver is swinging wide into another lane and then coming back across the lane that they should have been in to begin with, they are essentially doing the same thing that you would do on a left-hand turn. You were going across the path of travel. You're cutting across the path of oncoming traffic in that lane, and you are responsible for that as a professional driver. And I need to say this, and I know that there aren't enough professional drivers on my channel, because most of the channel is directed towards people passing a driver's test for the first time. But truck drivers, and I want to say this to people who are getting their license, people who have already driven big trucks, stay away from them. Absolutely stay away from them, because if you're the least bit unsure what they're doing, increase your following distance even more. And if you have to stop, just simply bring your vehicle to a stop. Because I said this in a blog post that I wrote this morning, that car drivers don't know anything about semi-trucks, and nor should they have to. Okay, it's the responsibility of the professional driver, because it's, as I say, it's not a matter of when somebody's going to do, it's not a matter of if somebody's going to do something goofy. It's a matter of when somebody's going to do something goofy. And if big trucks are turning or changing lanes, they have enormous blind spots around them. And what you need to do is you just need to give them space. And if you are passing on an interstate or a highway, passing a big truck, a semi-truck, get past as quickly as you can. Do not hang out beside them, all right, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Okay, get past them as quickly as possible to keep yourself safe, because you don't know what that semi-truck driver is going to be doing. And the other piece about it, it goes back to drivers as a variable on the roadway. You don't know the level of skill of that truck driver, and you don't know whether that truck driver is paying attention to what he or she is doing. And the truck driver in that short video, Corey's put up the link there for that, they were not paying attention. They swung out into the left lane, and then they just made a right-hand turn without checking their mirror. And, these guys can say all they want, that there's huge blind spots up and down the passenger side of the semi-truck. they have convex mirrors on that truck. They have bus mirrors on that truck. They can see all the way down the side of that truck. There's no reason for them to be doing that in this day and age. And especially now, most of these big trucks, these newer big trucks, all have proximity sensors on them. So they should be going slow. They should be scanning. They should be looking. And if they're driving and causing another vehicle to run off the roadway, it is the responsibility of the professional driver to be doing that. And unfortunately, it is now coming to light that most truck drivers are not professionals. Very few of them are professionals. And, you know, the other thing that I will have a go at is you know, these million-mile drivers. It's like, I've never been involved in a crash and I've driven 1,000,000 miles or 2,000,000 miles. No, that's not true. You cannot drive that far and not have something happen. Something will happen. You will hit a bridge, you will back into something, you'll do something goofy because you get tired, you get distracted, you do dumb things. Here's an example of that. When I was driving coaches in Australia, I had all kinds of experience. And the yard where they parked the buses was super tight. Super tight. And you had to drive straight out of the parking space because there was not enough room for you to swing in the parking space or to make the turn. And got in the bus, one moment of inattention. I don't know what I was thinking or what I was doing, but I was distracted by whatever was going on. I think it was the fact that the fuel pumps were like right there in front of where the buses were parked, and there was somebody on the fuel island and they were fueling the bus and they were doing something goofy. Well, I drove straight forward for about 10 feet and then I turned the steering wheel and I went right up the side of the other bus and I scratched, you know, I put a big dent in the other bus with the mirror on my bus. And I was just like, oh my God. But it was like one moment of inattention. So if somebody tells me that they drove 1,000,000 miles or 2,000,000 miles and they never hit anything or they never dinged the truck or tore a mud flap off or those types of things, I am dubious. I am so dubious of that when professional drivers say that to me, because the vehicles are just too big and there's just too many things that can happen and go wrong when you're driving a big vehicle. Gigi, I was driving a few years ago and I got scared when a trailer passed me on the highway. Was it a pickup truck and a trailer, Gigi, or just a trailer with no truck or trailer on it? Marion, what scares me most is those double trailer dump trucks on the road. Yeah, the double truck dump truck drivers, they're a different breed in and of themselves. They do all kinds of goofy things. So yeah, definitely stay away from them and give them lots of room for sure. Elevator fan, if you pass a big truck on the right, it makes it harder for the truck driver to see you. Elevator fan, my counsel to anybody is, if you're on a multi-lane interstate, then yes, maybe pass on the right, but I really would suggest to you to get over to the left and pass them on the left, because that whole passenger side of a big truck, a semi-truck, a bus, any large vehicle is the blind side of the vehicle, and there's a reason they call it the blind side of the vehicle, so know that. Double container. I think I know what you're talking about, Gigi, but yes, big vehicles, just stay away from them, give them lots of space, and if you are going to pass them, you're on the interstate, you're on the freeway, get past them as quickly as possible. Have that situational awareness that you're going to keep yourself safe when you're driving, and put in place those defensive posturing. Because again, as I said, you don't know who's behind the wheel of that truck, who's behind the wheel of that bus or large vehicle or RV or whatever it might be. And the other piece about it is that you don't know how long they've been driving either, whether they're tired or their eyes are popping out of their head or whatnot, or, you know, they do have compliance regulations about how many hours they can drive, but still, it's a long time, especially here in Canada. You can drive 13 hours behind the wheel. Well, if you've been doing 2 or 3 days where you're driving 13 hours a day, that is an incredible amount of driving, and you are super tired. So keep yourself safe, keep your space around big vehicles, get past them as quickly as possible. And especially there in Vancouver, right? I mean, if you ever get down on River Road and you're going out towards the ferry, you're going to be in the big trucks. There's just heaps and heaps and heaps of them. But maintain your 3 to 4 second following distance, stop back in traffic 1 vehicle length, and pass them as quickly as possible. Dump truck with double trailers, yes. So we got a lot of those dump trucks, double trailers, hauling around, especially, when construction zones and those types of things, a lot of those out on the highway, if they're doing road work and whatnot. Again, keep your space, situational awareness, figure out what's going on, and maintain that buffer, that minimum safe distance between your vehicle and other vehicles on the roadway. And as well, have that situational awareness. If you're sitting at a traffic light and this big truck comes up, as they sometimes will, and they'll sit right on your bumper, pay attention to what they're doing, all right? Epic, my friend. Additionally, for cars and motorcycle drivers at railway crossings, these vehicles must also stop at them trucks with HC loads and buses. If you don't pay attention to them, crash. There are some vehicles that do, yes, trucks hauling hazardous materials, school buses, these vehicles do have to come to a stop at railway crossings. So pay attention to that as well as part of your situational awareness. And again, situational awareness at railway crossings, okay? If the gates are down and the lights are flashing, the bells are dinging, do not go around the gate, all right? Trains, pay attention to trains. In Canada, there are still 50 people a year killed at railway crossings. It's the same thing in the United States. Approximately 500 people a year are still killed, and maybe Corey can fact check that information for me. I think it's about 500 is the number of people killed by trains in the United States. Do not race a train. It's not the same as it is in the movies. It doesn't happen. You don't get away scot-free. Know that. In terms of railway crossings. And again, railway crossings are intersections along the roadways. So pay attention, only go when the way is clear. Know that some vehicles, trucks hauling hazardous materials, school buses, these are going to stop at the railway tracks. And again, if you do stop at the railway tracks and there's a train proceeding, make sure that you stop back 30, 40 feet from the railway tracks. Okay, don't stop right on the railway tracks. Gigi, I saw a school bus driving a few days ago and the lights were flashing. A car on the opposite side of the road didn't stop and just kept going. Yes, unfortunately, Gigi, that happens all the time and people are in hurries. It's the same thing in construction zones with flaggers. Many cars will not stop. They will not pay attention to what the flaggers are doing. Also know that in this day and age, many flaggers will get your license plate number and it is reported to the police and you can receive a ticket in the aftermath of that event because flaggers have the same authority as police directing traffic. Keep yourself safe in construction zones. Pay attention to what flaggers are doing. In addition to that, oftentimes flaggers are put at crash scenes along the highways and roadways as well to keep people safe. Elevator fan, is it illegal to go around a crossing gate that is down at a railway crossing? Yes, it is illegal, I believe. I would need to fact check that. But more important than illegal is it is extremely dangerous for you to do that because trains do not, and I repeat this, do not stop. Freight trains that are traveling at high speeds take approximately a mile to get stopped. So 5,000 feet to get a train stop that's on the tracks. So if they have any momentum whatsoever, it's not going to go well for you. Kane, when someone is tailgating me, I just turn on the emergency lights to tell them to be more careful. Yeah, that could work as well, but unfortunately that's conveying the wrong information, Kane. Oftentimes when you turn on the emergency lights, it indicates to other traffic that there's something wrong with your vehicle. I would just tap the brake lights a couple of times. That tends to be more effective in terms of communicating to the people behind you that they need to back off. They need to get off your bumper and stop trying to park in your trunk. Situational awareness, you need room to work, so keep your following distance in front. Map and track other road users, especially those, as we've been talking about, in terms of people that are tailgating you, following too close, because when people are tailgating you, they have no control about what's going on, and they're hoping on a wing and a prayer that they are going to be able to react fast enough that they can get their vehicle stopped if you do something goofy. If people are tailgating you and refuse to back off or give more space between their vehicle and yours, you need to increase more distance in front of your vehicle so that you can make maneuvers and lane changes and stops more gradual so that the person behind you is not taken off guard and all of a sudden, they make a mistake and run into you. This is what you want to try and prevent. If you can, merge back into the right lane. If you're in the left lane and there's a right lane and it's clear, move back into the right lane. If there's a place you're on a 2-lane highway somewhere that you can safely move off the roadway, just move off the roadway and let them go and have their crash somewhere else. And too many people follow too close. We know that. We know that in North America, the #1 crash on our highways is rear end crashes. It's the most common crash on our roadways. Gigi, Vancouver drivers let me think extremely hard, especially during rush hour. Yes, indeed. And also road ragers. And road rage is becoming more and more common, especially as inflation is driving most of us to the absolute crazy brink. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on social media right now about how expensive it is to eat out and how expensive it is to buy groceries. And every time I go to the grocery store, I just want to cry because something I buy has gone up another $3 or $4. And, you know, they talk about inflation. Oh, inflation is only 3 or 4%. You know, it's not that bad. It seems to be, it's kind of like the Home Depot model, that you go to Home Depot and a few things are less expensive than anywhere else, but everything else is more expensive. It's the same thing with groceries. Coffee that I buy has gone up $12 a box. Cheese that I buy has now gone up. It's what used to be $24. Now it's $37. So it's gone up $13. You know, and just about everything else you buy has gone up. Cereal, breakfast cereal. Don't even buy breakfast cereal anymore because now it's $10 a box, whereas it used to be $5 or $6 a box. On special, it was $4 a box. Now it's $10 a box. I don't even buy breakfast cereal. We used to have a cupboard here that was full of breakfast cereal for the kids, and now there isn't any in it. It hasn't had breakfast cereal in it for a couple of years now. So, you know, inflation, groceries, we're under stress. People are driving, they're under stress, and your car is the second most personal space that we have as people, right? So it's the place that we're going to express our rawest emotions, which many times is anger, and what Gigi was saying in big cities, road rage. You're in my way. You need to get out of my way, and people are going to tell you in no uncertain terms that they're upset with what you're doing. They're going to police your behavior, and they're going to display that by giving you the finger, tailgating you, yelling at you, screaming, honking their horns, you know, minor aggression. And then, you know, if it escalates, it's going to be major aggression where they're going to use their car as a weapon. They're going to get out of the vehicle. They're going to force you off the road. They're going to engage in violence and those types of things. So, you know, don't engage. Marion, the cereal I get is 3 boxes for $10. Marion, where are you getting cereal for 3 boxes for $10? Because the stuff that I or the stuff that I look at, it's all $10, and I'm just like, yeah, you can keep it because I'm not buying it for $10. Gigi, this lady yelled at me and flashed her lights. Also, she flipped me off. Yep. Did you just let her go and have her crash somewhere else, Gigi? Because that's basically what you do when people do that, because people are going to do that. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. Situational awareness, knowing what the driving environment that you're in, being able to read traffic patterns, being able to map and track road users that potentially could come into your space, because you want to maintain that minimum safe distance around your vehicle to keep yourself safe, and not only to keep yourself safe and reduce the chances of you being involved in a crash, but also space so that you can work, right? You can observe, you can scan, you can respond to changing traffic conditions and implement the best defensive posturing to keep yourself safe when you're driving. Walmart and Superstore. Well, it must be different in Vancouver, Marion, because it's certainly not that here in the interior where I live. It's, you know, and I've been to Superstore, and I go to Wholesale Club and I go to Walmart and those types of things. It's not 3 boxes for $10, that's for sure. Because if it was three boxes for $10, I would buy it. But it's $10 a box. $10 a box for cereal. So, situational awareness, implement driving skills, implement driving habits that are going to keep you safe. Because the piece of information that we know about driving is that most drivers are going to get in a crash once every 15 to 17 years. So for too long, Many drivers are going to go along thinking that what they're doing in the way that they're driving is going to be completely safe, when one day it's not going to be safe, and unfortunately you're going to be involved in a crash. So situational awareness is one of the most critical skills that you can implement for best defensive posturing and significantly reducing your chances of being involved in a crash. Epic, New York City, pay attention to signals, particularly the ones with transit priority, because that light goes green, then yours. If not, go into a serious accident. Yes, traffic lights is another thing that you need to pay attention to, because different traffic lights at different intersections, as Epic said. Transit priority, if you're in the city of Montreal, it's going to be different because they have a different setup, and Corey will put up the video for you on driving in Montreal and the traffic lights and how that works. And the traffic setup for lights in the city of Montreal is for pedestrian safety, and it is really, really awesome. And I think that more cities should adopt the traffic patterns of what's going on in the city of Montreal. You make a road trip to Vancouver and buy some cereal. Yes, indeed, Marion. Probably that's what I need to do. Gigi, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. That is absolutely awesome, awesome, awesome. Gigi, you're coming to Vernon for driving practice. That is really great, my friend. Drop me a note. Maybe we'll grab a cup of coffee or something. All the best. Situational awareness. Have that in place. Keep yourself safe. ABS, always be scanning. 3 to 4 second following distance and stopping back in traffic 1 vehicle length for your best defensive posturing. Have those driving habits in place. Keep yourself safe, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Bye now.